This video explores the story of the 5-Minute Gang and the downfall of its infamous leader, Ian Williams. The gang was known for orchestrating a series of high-profile house and business burglaries in Pietermaritzburg. They were known to hit a spot in and out quick in 5 minutes or less. The police reports say they were responsible for over 100 break-ins targeting high-end homes. The group also allegedly robbed a jewelry warehouse in KZN, making off with goods valued at over 1 million rands. Ian came from a feared and a notorious family. His grandfather was Jigajo Dlamini, a well-known taxi boss with a powerful reputation in Pietermaritzburg's criminal underworld. Now in 2012, Ian was arrested for laying down a man during a road rage incident, and he managed to get bail. But after that situation, he continued with his criminal sprees. Later on, he was arrested again with 10 others for being part of a syndicate that dealt in stolen cars. But ultimately, Ian was taken out by the police in an attempted car theft, in what authorities claimed was a shootout with the cops. Now in this video, we'll dive into the dangerous life of Ian Williams and the rise and fall of the notorious 5-Minute Gang. The so-called 5-Minute Gang was actually made up of several different groups from the same area of Pietermaritzburg. The original version of the gang was dismantled by the police in 2008. However, in the 2010s, a new group emerged with the same modus operandi, and the media once again referred to them as the 5-Minute Gang. The gang employed various tactics to break into homes, with one of the most common being to ring a bell to check if anyone was home before proceeding with the burglary. These guys caused a lot of havoc. They were responsible for stealing from numerous houses. Now, according to the police, these sophisticated burglars were believed to have been involved in over 100 high-end home robberies in Pietermaritzburg. Their operations weren't just limited to residential areas. They also targeted businesses, including high-end jewelry stores. The gang ran a slick and organized operation, using police radios to monitor the cops' activities in the area. Now, they typically used top-of-the-range VWs and Audis, rented from rental agencies in Durban as their getaway vehicles. Using fake number plates, the gang would stake out targeted areas for up to 3 hours before executing their crimes, usually between 1 and 6 a.m. They primarily stole TVs, laptops, jewelries, or anything of value that they could carry out or drive. It's also believed that they had some police officers on their payroll, which further complicated efforts to catch them. The group was part of a larger syndicate, described at the time as the city's biggest car theft record. Some members were eventually arrested following a 2-year undercover police operation. They were known to specifically target vehicles such as Toyota Fortuners, Toyota Hilux Bakkies, and Volkswagen Polos. The gang was also believed to be behind the armed robbery at Natal Wholesale Jewelers in Liberty Mall, where jewelry worth 1 million rands was stolen. Now, reports suggest that the gang had connections with international buyers, and that after committing their crimes, they would travel via back roads to Durban with their stolen goods. Ian Williams was suspected of being the mastermind behind the revived 5-Minute Gang that terrorized the suburbs of Wembley, Cascades, and Montrose. His brother Derek was also a key member of the gang. Both were from Mpambani in Eastwood and had a passion for fast motorcycles. They were known to be good drivers, professional level driving skills. When it came to car chases, the police struggled to catch them due to their exceptional driving skills. Now, the Williams brothers were essentially stunt-level drivers, nearly impossible to catch them in a chase. Now, in 2014, Ian Williams was 27 at the time. He appeared in the Pietermaritzburg Magistrate Court alongside 10 accomplices, including Derek, his brother. They were facing 15 charges related to vehicle theft. Ian came from a notorious family with deep roots in Pietermaritzburg's criminal underworld. His grandfather, the late Jigajo Dlamini, was a feared figure, widely regarded as the godfather type in the area. He led the infamous Jigajo group. Now, these guys were powerful, and they were known for violent crimes throughout the 90s and 2000s in Pietermaritzburg. Now, the grandfather Jigajo allegedly paid 2 South African National Defence Force soldiers to take out a rival taxi boss, Simpiwe Kansas Mkhize. Now Mkhize was laid down in front of his family at his Pietermaritzburg home in May of 2002. Another notorious figure in the family was Bongani Christopher Dlamini. I'm not sure if it's their uncle, but they were related. Now Bongani was implicated in the assassination of Suri Maharaj. Now Maharaj was known as the Curry Mafia boss. He was hit 6 times in his Pietermaritzburg office by a suspected hitman who fled the scene in an unregistered motorcycle. Now the Curry Mafia boss was a prominent underworld figure, facing charges that included illegal diamond dealing, check fraud, conspiracy to free a convicted criminal, and plotting to take out state witnesses. He was also reportedly involved in vehicle theft syndicates and large-scale bank frauds. The violence didn't end with the Curry Mafia boss's hit. Just the day after the hit, and only minutes after his cremation at the Mountain Rise crematorium, his associate or right-hand man, John Feud, was hit 5 times and taken out as he left the crematorium. Now the hitman was later caught and he started snitching. He claimed he had been paid R500,000 to carry out the hit as a revenge, allegedly by individuals who believed Feud was behind Maharaj's hit. Outside of the hitman, there were 2 other taxi bosses who were arrested for being part of that hit, and the Williams brothers' relative, Bongani Christopher Dlamini, was also arrested in that case. Now this is to show that the Williams brothers, the family they come from, they really are about that life, or they were about that life. Ian was also accused of taking out Tyrant Terry in 2012. He allegedly shot Terry in the dome after the 2 men had clashed over an allegation that whilst driving, Williams had dangerously cut in front of Terry. It is believed that Williams then tracked down Terry to his home in Mpambani, where he shot him. For 3 months, the police conducted surveillance on the gang's criminal activities, focusing particularly on the Montrose area, due to a spike in house break-ins and vehicle thefts. Aware that the gang might be monitoring the police radio communications, the police used cell phones to coordinate their efforts and avoid tipping off the gang. The gang allegedly targeted a vehicle parked outside a restaurant. Now officers who had been monitoring the area moved in swiftly. According to reports, gang members were wearing balaclavas and gloves. They exited a white Golf 7 GTI, believed to be the getaway car, and entered the targeted car. As they attempted to start it, the gang was confronted by the police. Now it's alleged that the suspects opened fire on the cops from inside the vehicle whilst trying to escape. Now the police returned fire. Now during the exchange, the 2 suspects inside the car were fatally hit. Now the vehicle veered off the road and crashed into a roadside embankment, coming to a stop. Ian Williams and his accomplice Zwazi Ngubo were taken out in the shootout. Now his brother Derek and the other suspect were injured and transported to Grey Hospital. Then inside the getaway car, the police discovered 12 vehicle computer boxes, a signal jamming device used to block tracking systems, a police radio, house-breaking tools, and 3 hammers which were loaded. Derek and his co-accused sustained serious injuries in the shootout but still faced trial. Now the 2 suspects faced additional charges of murder related to the deaths of Ian Williams and Zwazi Ngubo, who were taken out during the confrontation with the police. Now they were also charged with attempted theft of a motor vehicle, 5 counts of attempted murder of the police officers, and 3 counts of unlawful possessions of hammers and ammunition. According to the family, Ian's death was not the result of a shootout, but rather an execution by the police. They claim that Ian never fired at the officers, but instead he was hit in the dome at close range. Now the family also accused the media of spreading false information, specifically reports that Ian and his gang were involved in over 100 burglaries and that the gang members burnt cars during Ian's funeral. Now rumors also circulated about a hit list targeting the officers that allegedly were responsible for Ian's death. though police dismissed these claims, stating that they were facing intimidation, and they responded by arresting more suspected gang members. In the early hours of the 28th of June 2025, just after 3 a.m., two shooters stormed into a shack in Gugulethu's Kanana area and opened fire on a group of 7 people gathered in the kitchen. It was brutal. All 7 were taken out on the spot. And in the next room, 3 others were asleep. They woke up to a sound of shots, but fear gripped them so tightly they didn't even scream. Frozen in terror, they stayed silent, believing they might be next. And that silence saved their lives. When police and emergency services arrived, the scene was horrific. Bodies were scattered across the shack, 11 dead shells still laying around. Neighbors watched from a distance, too scared to speak, cause fear had the neighborhood on a chokehold. Just a day later, 2 more people were laid down in a house in Yanga. Again, no one dared to speak. Afraid the shooters might be nearby, watching for anyone who's snitching. Then there were media reports that the 2 shootings, the one in Gugs and this one in Yanga, they might be connected. But for now, the links remain unclear. Soon after the Gugulethu hit, images of 2 possible suspects began circulating online, and one of them, known as Fire, reportedly he turned himself in after learning that the NIU might be looking for him, especially since other suspects had recently been laid down by the police. Now the second person of interest is Loyiso Matinisi, who as of this recording is still on the run. Then came another shocking twist. Fire, the same man now linked to the Gugulethu hits, had recently been released from police custody. He had been arrested for a hit on a well-known Gugulethu CPF or Community Policing Forum leader known as Goofy. Now Goofy wasn't just a CPF member, she was known for being fearless, strict and fully committed to cleaning up the streets of Gugs. But that dedication may have cost her life. It's believed that Goofy, whose real name was Dinginto, had received death threats before she was taken out. Now in the early hours of 10 December 2023, just after 2:40 a.m., a shooter broke into a home in NY 110 in Gugs. Gunshots erupted inside the house. Her sister, who was sleeping in the backyard room, rushed inside, hoping it wasn't Goofy, but there she was, lying in a pool of blood near the bathroom. Nobody knew who did it or why. Then just 3 days later, after the hit, a 50,000 rands reward was offered to anyone who can help identify the shooters. Now it didn't take long for investigators to zero in on the suspects. It was Fire. Realizing he was now a wanted man, Fire fled to the Eastern Cape. He was caught while passing through Graaff-Reinet in a bus and taken into custody. Then it was revealed that Fire had a dark past. In 2018, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison for housebreaking and an attempted hit. He also had several other serious cases pending at the time. Fire spent a short time behind bars while attending court for Goofy's hit, but then another bombshell dropped. The key witness in that case turned up dead. With no one left to testify, the case fell apart. Suddenly, Fire was a free man. Not long after his release, the streets were talking that Fire was back in the hood, extorting local businesses, instilling fear and showing no remorse. Then the Kanana massacre in Gugulethu shook the community, and Fire's name started ringing bells again.
This small backyard dwelling could go. When stormed in, all were trapped. The crime scene is explicit and cannot be shown. Blood has pooled, lying thick on the floor, and there is thick splatter on the walls, windows and curtains. This latest incident brings the number of people killed in mass murders on the Cape Flats to 13. The SAPS says it's too early to know the motive, but mass murders in the past several years have been linked to certain issues.
As his pictures began spreading all over social media, Fire knew exactly what was coming. He feared he'd become another headline. Suspect shot at police and officers returned fire. Knowing how the NIU operated, he decided not to take any chance. He handed himself over to the police. Now, according to the police charge sheet, the man, now identified as Lungile Madolo, allegedly Fire's real name, is facing horrifying charges. He stands accused of taking out Gugulethu Makongo, Sianda Tongana, Afezile Tongana, Hlomla Tongana, Somile Vitela, Luyolo Zoneli, Loyiso Jezile, plus Pumlane Zoya. All 8 victims were men and all were laid down with a hammer. Now, during court proceedings, the state prosecutor told the magistrate that while there were media applications to film and photograph the accused, he opposed showing Madolo's face publicly, since the identity parade still needed to be done. Now, the identity parade was scheduled for 9 May 2025. The accused faces 8 counts of hits, 1 count of possession of an unlicensed hammer, caliber still unknown, and another of possession of ammunition. Gun violence in the Cape Flats is spiraling out of control. The same weekend, the Kanana massacre shook Gugulethu. At least 19 people were shot across the Cape Flats in what appears to be a brutal surge in gang violence. Now, in Mitchell's Plain, gang members were busting their hammers in several areas: Beacon Valley, East Ridge, Tafelberg, and Town Centre. Then in total, 5 people were laid down and 7 more were injured in a series of shootings. Now, in one chilling incident, 5 people were shot inside a tuck shop in Beacon Valley. 2 of them didn't make it. Now, as police and paramedics were still attending to the victims, gunfire erupted again in another tech shop just around the corner. Now, 4 more were laid down and 1 person didn't make it. According to reports, the Beacon Valley shootings weren't just random gang violence, they were personal. Allegedly, the bloodshed started over family feud between in-laws who belong to rival gangs. Now, word on the streets is that the men involved might be married to sisters, and the beef exploded into a full-blown gang war. Now, the shootings of the 5 men inside the tuck shop is believed to be directly connected to that feud. Now, police have since arrested 14 suspects aged 20 and 39 in connection with the hits and the attempted hits. Now, the shootings are believed to be part of a larger ongoing turf war tearing through the Cape Flats.
General, I want to understand the cause of these shootings. Have police gotten to the root cause of it?
What we have so far gathered is that this has started as a fight between the in-laws. In-laws in the sense that these 2 gangsters, they are married to siblings from one family, but the one gangster was fighting with the son of the other one, and which then became an issue that ended up escalating for the death of the 5 and so many 7 that were critically injured.
Why is there so much beef in the Mascandi industry?
It's because that's how you get fame.
This video dives deep into the beef between 2 of Mascandi music's biggest giants, Mthandeni and Khuzani. Known for years as arch-rivals, their battle isn't just in the music, it's in the streets, on TikTok, and in the hearts of fiercely loyal fans. Now, the fan base is deeply divided, with each side convinced their favorite is the true king of Mascandi. That devotion has sparked more than just online debates. It has turned violent. Fistfights, threats, and chaos has broken out at events and even in everyday settings. Now, a new battleground has emerged: TikTok. A wave of passionate Mascandi influencers have taken to live streams, trading verbal blows and hurling insults in defense of their idols. But the digital war has spilled into real life. Recently, a TikToker was laid down during a live stream, his followers forced to witness his final moments. Now this marks the second deadly shooting of a well-known Mascandi TikTok influencer in just a few months. Now in this video, we'll unravel the dark side of Mascandi beefs, the power of online influence, and the tragic stories of two superfans who paid the ultimate price. TikTok has become a battleground for die-hard Mascandi fans, where aggressive fandom runs wild and expletives, insults, and misogyny reign supreme. What was once a cultural celebration has spiraled into a chaotic frenzy and an intense, often toxic war of words and loyalty. Now this isn't a new thing. The darker side of Mascandi has claimed lives in the past. The rivalry reached new heights during the golden era of two legendary superstars, Mpambani and Mchengseni. Their beef reportedly cost more than 6 lives. Now things got intense that Bhodloza Nzimande, who was head of Ukhozi FM, had to pull both artists off air until they finally called a truce. Fast forward to today, Mascandi is bigger, louder, and more profitable than ever. And with money, of course, comes rivalry. Now at the heart of the genre's current clash are two young, wildly talented stars, Mthandeni and Khuzani. Now their music is electrifying and their personas polarizing, their fan bases fiercely loyal. But with loyalty comes division, and that division has erupted into physical altercations and violent confrontations. The rivalry isn't just about the music, it's about style, influence, and pride. Both Mthandeni and Khuzani have had public run-ins, and tensions between them boiled over during Ukhozi FM Song of the Year contest, where fans vote via SMS, votes that pour in by millions and bring in massive revenue for the two stations Ukhozi FM and Umhlobo Wenene FM. Now in 2021, Khuzani won Song of the Year title for the second year in a row, but everything had changed when Mthandeni dropped Paris. Now a track that shook the genre to its core. The song smashed records, surpassing Khuzani's biggest song Ijele and the legendary Ngafa by Shwino Mtekala. Now Paris clocked over 12 million views on YouTube within a very short space of time and 3 million global streams on Spotify. Now this song broke barriers and it redefined Mascandi's digital footprint. But still, Khuzani took home the title Song of the Year. Now remember, this is based on people voting. Now the Song of the Year title, he got it based on the song Umjololo, which had just 4 million views at the time, compared to Paris, which had 12 million views. Now Mthandeni's Paris was placed second, despite outperforming the other song in nearly every metric. Now the decision ignited outrage, further stoking the flames of an already volatile rivalry. In 2017, the conflict escalated to such dangerous levels that KZN MEC for Arts and Culture, Bongiwe Sithole, had to intervene. After a private meeting with both artists, she issued a heartfelt plea for peace. Both Khuzani and Mthandeni agreed to tone down the sarcasm and personal attacks in their music, but the fan wars raged on. In a haunting first for South Africa, a TikTok live stream turned into a real-life horror when Cinseko Mvelase, a 27-year-old Mascandi music reviewer, was laid down in front of his followers, live on camera. Now this happened in broad daylight, inside Mvelase's home in Nigel, Gauteng. He was engaging with his fans in real time when a shooter stormed in and opened fire. Now, in the final moments of the stream, Mvelase looks up from his screen. Then gunshots ring out. His phone clashes to the ground and the live stream goes blank. Originally from KwaMaphumulo in KZN, Mvelase was a fierce supporter of Mascandi superstar Mthandeni. Now on TikTok, Mvelase gained notoriety for his sharp, unapologetic commentary, especially for his frequent takedowns of Khuzane and his fans. Now his fearlessness came at a cost. He was kidnapped in the past and he revealed that his TikTok account had been hacked before. Mvelase is believed to be the first South African to be taken out during a TikTok live stream, but he is now the second Mascandi-linked TikToker to be assassinated in less than 6 months. In December of 2024, TikTok personality Dubula Mbata from KwaNongoma was laid down at a car wash in Shisanyama in Malvern in Johannesburg. Like Mvelase, Dubula was flamboyant, passionate and fiercely vocal on TikTok, especially when it came to defending Mthandeni and criticizing opposing fans. Now his live streams, laced with expletives and provocation, made him both a viral sensation and a marked man. Dubula was allegedly shot 16 times. He succumbed to his injuries in hospital. Now sources claim the attack may have been linked to a TikTok beef involving a taxi boss and a member of the powerful Gaba family. Now in a viral video, Dubula mocked the taxi boss, calling him a little boy, though he later issued a public apology, referring to him now as Big Brother. Now the tension never fully dissolved. So on the day of the shooting, Dubula was reportedly visiting a friend at a hostel in Johannesburg. That's when the shooter emerged and opened fire without warning. Mascandi music is booming, especially in KZN. Its influence is growing day by day, but it's thriving in a province already gripped by bloodshed. KZN has long been haunted by political assassinations and taxi violence, and the last thing the province needs is the cultural battle or the Mascandi wars added to an already explosive landscape.
At some point, a single artist would do 3 albums in a year.
Yes.
But asayiboni angazi ukuthi wena ke uyibona kanjani, but that phenomena isekho. What do you think happened?
Yeah, I'm the reason. I'm finished that thing. Now I'm finished that thing. I exist in manje. I say exist and ngampela isikhathi sawo siphelile. You understand? Ngiyisibuko saleyo nto leyo. So that's why ubona izinto eziningi ukuchaza nje ukuthi abantu abasawakhipha imalibha amaningi ingoba kwaye kwayimina lokho. You understand? Even na online kade bengekho Mascandi kakhulu online. Even noma bekhona befaka ingoma online Mascandi but bebe ngawashaya ama-million. But the time kungena Mthandeni SK, uyabona umshovu enkani kwaba nenkani indlaba iphika amambatha sebesola amadevana, washintsha yonke i-industry kaMascandi. So nalento ke yokugcokama yokuba clean nje ubabona nje oquality no Big Zulu, uyabo exact nasiki isibuko wonke nje umuntu osuka ngala eNatal oswenkayo oyijongo insizwa ubukela la.
Corrupt and dangerous municipalities in Gauteng is Ekurhuleni. We thought we had seen it all with the tragic murder of Babita Deokaran, but what followed proved things were even worse. Babita was killed after uncovering a dark web of corruption linked to Tembisa Hospital. She was investigating irregular contracts awarded to shady companies connected to criminal syndicates. Now these companies were bleeding the hospital dry, working hand in hand with corrupt officials inside the hospital and in government. Their modus operandi is to inflate the prices of everything the hospital bought, from basic supplies to medical equipment. And the then hospital CEO, Eshlim Toons, signed off on every single one of these inflated invoices. In total, more than 850 million rands was siphoned from Tembisa Hospital. It was not a shock that some of the people behind these companies were members of the ANC. Now today, some of the people were investigated, but some were not. and all of them were never held accountable. Now, Babita had flagged several suspicious companies before her death, but after she was silenced, the looting continued. One of the flagged companies was Kaizen Projects, owned by the former ANC Ekurhuleni Treasury General Sello Sikoko. At the height of the Tembisa Hospital scandal, he was running for ANC Ekurhuleni Regional Chairperson, and he won. But many insiders believe that the stolen hospital millions funded that campaign. All in all, the Kaizen Project's boss, Sello Sikoko, made between 84 and 94 million rands from tenders, not just from Tembisa Hospital, but from other hospitals across Gauteng as well. And he did it all without a valid license to sell medical products. Simniki Wamapini was an adjudicator in the city of Ekurhuleni's finance department, was driving near Red Airport in Germiston on the 8th of December 2023 when tragedy struck. He was with a colleague when he stopped at the traffic lights, and out of nowhere, two shooters appeared and opened fire, unleashing a hail of shots on their car. Simnikiwe died on the scene and his colleague survived. Simnikiwe was known as a dedicated worker, serious, committed and unshakable. At the time of his death, he was investigating dodgy contracts handed out by the city, specifically for chemical toilets or the bucket system and waste management. No arrests were made on this hit. Then on the 30th of June 2025, another city official was laid down, this time on the R300 near Esland Park. Mpambani was driving when shooters pulled up in an Avanza and sprayed his vehicle with shots. When the police and paramedics arrived just before 6 p.m, Mpho was found laying in a pool of blood. He was pronounced dead on the scene. Sources close to the situation said this wasn't random. It was a hit. Mpho was on the brink of exposing a massive 2 billion rands electricity scandal involving tempered accounts, ghost billing, and a system designed to rob the city blind. Some businesses were paying next to nothing for electricity, while others had disappeared from the system completely, but still receiving the electricity. But that's not all. Mpho was also investigating the refurbishment of a municipal building in Germiston, a project that was supposed to cost 64 million rands and take 1 year. Instead, the cost ballooned to over 300 million rands, and more than 8 years later, the building is still not finished. Mpho had only been appointed as the city's group divisional head of corporate and forensic audits 3 months before he was killed. Just like Mpambani, Kagiso Lerutla started his career at the Auditor General's office before joining the city of Ekurhuleni in 2014. He became the divisional head of governance and compliance in the city's finance department. Effectively, he was the CFO. On a quiet Thursday afternoon, Lerutla was driving alone through Primrose, heading towards Germiston, when an attempt was made on his life. He noticed a suspicious Hyundai i10 following him. Suddenly, it overtook his car and blocked his path. Two shooters, one in the front and one in the back of the car, opened fire. Lerutla managed to escape by covering his face. The bullets hit his hand. Now bleeding from his hand, he drove all the way home. He then pulled out the 2 bullets himself and then went to open a case at the Kempton Park police station. Now what makes this even more chilling is that Lerutla was the boss of Simniki Wamapini, the city official who was laid down in Germiston. Now both men were reportedly working together as part of a team investigating the Ekurhuleni Metro cartel, network of corrupt individuals looting the city's funds through fraudulent or questionable contracts and tenders. Lerutla survived the ambush, but the message was loud and clear: back off. Then on the 20th of July, a 40-year-old man from Davidson, Thabane Goodwill Nchalenchali, was arrested for the assassination of Mpambani. Shockingly, Thabane was already out on bail for another hit of DJ Bongani Mfihlo, which happened in Kempton Park back in September of 2023. But this time, the Kempton Park Magistrates Court denied him bail. As for the other two victims, Sinikiwe Mapini and the attempted hit on Kagiso Lerutla, no one has been arrested. What's happening in these municipalities is deeply disturbing. Whenever auditors uncover corruption and report it to senior officials, instead of action being taken, something darker unfolds. Corrupt insiders within the municipality team up with shady business people who benefit from the illegal tenders, and they hire hitmen to silence the auditors who ask too many questions. It's truly a deadly game of greed and fear. Now these criminals are enriching themselves at the expense of taxpayers, while ordinary people continue to suffer from poor or non-existent service delivery. On the 19th of April 2025, a fire broke out in the emergency unit of Tembisa Hospital. Then 4 days later, another fire, this time close to the archive rooms where they kept important documents, some of them related to the corruption that happened around 2021 when Babita was auditing the hospital. Then came a twist. The suspect was caught and he confessed to starting the fire. He didn't stop there. He also named the hospital's head of security as being involved. I suspect this is part of the same cartel. And what's likely to happen next? As always, new contracts will be issued to repair the damages, and companies linked to the same cartel will swoop in, charging massively inflated prices and taking over 10 years to do the job that's supposed to take a year. Now this is how the city of Ekurhuleni operates, under the iron grip of government cartels that loot state funds and silence anyone who dares to expose them. Recently, the end of July of 2025, the streets of Tembisa erupted in violent protests as angry residents clashed with police, blocking roads and demanding answers. And the cause was the new tariff of 126 rands slapped on top of Eskom's regular price hikes. For a community already struggling, this increase was unbearable. Many said this was pushing them deeper into poverty, while those in power are getting richer by the day. Now all of this is happening while the Ekurhuleni Metro is dishing out fraudulent tenders with up to 2 billion rands handed to shady companies connected to government officials, instead of helping the communities or giving them service delivery. But they don't care. You see, at this point it's clear the government has no shame. They've crossed the line of no return, and there's no turning back from this corruption they've allowed to rot the system from the inside out. And until there's real justice for Babita Deokaran's death, the Ekurhuleni Gauteng cartel, they won't stop from looting this whole purse. Ignatius Ego Mpambani was born in 1980 in Velkom, a young businessman with interest in telecommunications and engineering. He was also a beloved figure in the Free State. Known for bringing life to the festive season in Velkom, his most famous creation was the Beach on the Track Festival at Phakisa Raceway. Now, despite his wealth, those close to Ego described him as humble and approachable. But behind the scenes, his fortune came largely from lucrative state contracts, and his cheat code was his alleged close connection to former Free State Premier and ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule. In political and business circles, he was known as the bagman, not because he literally carried Ace's bag, but because he moved money where it needed to go, always on instructions from the big guy. According to businessman/entrepreneur Edwin Sodi, he first met Ego around 2010 at one of Mpambani's high-class events in Velkom. They exchanged numbers but didn't see each other again until around 2014, when Ego approached Sodi with a bold proposition. There was a major asbestos removal project in Gauteng in which Sodi was involved in, and Ego claimed he could unlock similar tender opportunities in the Free State because he had the connections. Now, if their companies formed a joint venture, they could secure the contract. Now, Sodi was intrigued, and according to him, Ego took full control of making it happen. Inside the Free State Department of Human Settlements, Ego allegedly had a powerful connection. Many believed that connection was Ace Magashule. Now in the Free State, Ace's influence was absolute. When he spoke, everybody listened. Without following any proper tender process, the department awarded a massive asbestos removal contract worth 255 million rands to the joint venture between Ego and Edwin Sodi. But according to allegations, this money was never meant to remove any asbestos. Instead, it was to be split between Ace, Sodi, Ego and their comrades, funding a lifestyle of luxury and excess. Now, the state is trying to prove that Ace was the mastermind, controlling the flow of every cent. Now, in the Zondo Commission, Ace was labeled as a blesser because apparently he operates like one. There was no bidding, no competition for this tender. The deal was simply handed to these guys. Now, the 255 million rands was paid out in 10 separate tranches to the joint venture owned by Sodi and Ego. Each payment another step closer to what prosecutors claimed was a carefully orchestrated scheme. The first payment segment was 25 million rands. From that, Ace Magashule's secretary Cholota sent Ego the banking details of a travel agency and instructions. Then Ego deposited 250,000 rands to cover flights for 19 ANC delegates heading to Cuba for a political cause. Then came the 55,000 rands for school fees for a former judge, Refilo's daughter, who was studying in the USA. And this judge was suspended for dealing with the Guptas as well, so she was corrupt. Then there was 650,000 rands that was deposited to a dealership in Pietermaritzburg as a deposit for a Maserati for a senior department official. Then there was also a 600,000 rands that was paid to Tim Mukesi, who was the former head of the Human Settlements Department in the Free State, for a property investment. Then there was a 2 million rands that was also spent on a brand new Mercedes. These were some of the expenses, but these ones were the small transactions. Now the big money was moved through subcontracting, a classic laundering tactic. From the start, these guys never intended to do any work. Instead, they subcontracted the job to channel the funds. Now according to Sodi, the first subcontractor was Ego's friend, Sidney Radebe, whose company, Master Trader 232, had been struggling to secure contracts. Now Master Trader received around 44 million rands, if I'm not mistaken. But they also subcontracted the job to ORI Group or Ori Group, which was supposed to get 21 million rands but only received 6 million rands, leading them to take legal action. They were suing, but they didn't do any work as well. The payments went on and on until the last payment, that was 77.5 million rands, deposited straight into the joint venture account. Then Ego moved it to his own account. Now that amount was supposed to be split between Sodi and Ego as partners, but according to Sodi, Ego became greedy and he didn't split the cash. Now whenever he asked for his share, Ego gave him the runaround. Now the tension over this money poisoned their relationship and partnership. In June of 2017, Ego was behind the wheel of his 3 million rands Bentley, cruising through the busy Sandton traffic on Bowling Avenue. As the traffic lights turned red, he came to a stop. That's when it happened. A car parked on the side, 2 men stepped out, faces hidden behind balaclavas, rifles in hand. One approached from the front and the other from the driver's side. Realizing what was about to unfold, Ego tried to accelerate, but the traffic boxed him in. His Bentley bumped into the car ahead. The shooters opened fire, spraying the luxury vehicle with shots. Ego was hit multiple times and laid out instantly. Now without panic or rush, the shooters calmly returned to their vehicle and sped away into the city traffic. Ego slammed forward on the steering wheel. Now the driver of the car in front, shook by the gunfire, sped off, leaving Ego's Bentley to roll forward on its own, drifting for almost 100 meters before smashing into a pole and coming to a stop. When the police and paramedics arrived, Ego was already gone, but what they found inside the car shocked them. He had apparently visited a bank ATM shortly before the attack. On the passenger seat was a plastic bag stuffed with 100 rand notes up to 50,000 rands cash. Then in the boot, papers were scattered and another 50,000 rands also scattered in the boot. Now Ego had been driving around Sandton with 1 million rands in the car, cash. After Ego's death, investigators uncovered a damning spreadsheet, a list of initials belonging to department officials allegedly paid for their role in awarding the 255 million rands asbestos tender to Sodi and Ego. One entry showed AM, which many believe stands for Ace Magashule, receiving 10 million rands. Another was TM, thought to be Tim Mukesi, the former head of Department of Human Settlements in the Free State, who had already been linked to a property payment. The spreadsheet was found on Sodi's computer, but Sodi claimed he knew nothing about it, insisting that Ego had created it in his office and that he never bothered to ask what it was for, a claim many see as an obvious lie. Now with Ego dead, Sodi has been pinning all the criminal and irregular activities on him, knowing dead man can't defend himself. According to Sodi's version, Ego masterminded the entire operation, from securing the tender to making payments to misrepresenting details in the tender application. They claimed their companies could safely remove asbestos, but in reality, they had no expertise at all. Sodi says it was all Ego's doing. The money trail told its own story. Once the tender funds were paid into the joint venture's account, the money would be quickly transferred to Ego's company, 605 Consulting Solutions. From there, it was dispersed to relevant parties, such as the travel agency for the Cuba trip or the US school fees for the judge's daughter, buying of luxury cars and other payments. Ego was the hub of the entire money flow. Now Ace Magashule, secretary, would send him instructions on who to pay, how much and when. Then Ego made it happen, without Ace having to lift a finger. A textbook tender scam. Ego was executed in June of 2017. Then 6 months later, in December of the same year, ANC held its National Elective Conference in Nasrec. The showdown where Jacob Zuma's faction went head-to-head with Cyril Ramaphosa's camp. Then Ramaphosa's side won. Almost. The only Zuma ally to survive the purge was Ace Magashule, who clinched the position of ANC Secretary General, narrowly beating Senzo Mchunu. Now Ramaphosa's camp was not happy about that. Ace was a known Zuma loyalist and an outspoken critic of Ramaphosa. The first move to unseat him came quickly. They challenged the Free State voting results, the very province where Ace had secured most of his support. Ramaphosa's faction claimed the numbers were boosted by ghost delegates to tilt the outcome in Ace's favor, but without proof, Ace kept his place in the ANC's top 6. Then came the second strike, the step-aside rule. Now under this policy, any ANC member charged with corruption was required to vacate their position until their case was resolved in court. It became the weapon that Ramaphosa's camp used to force out Ace Magashule out of power. Ego's death might be the reason Ace walks free. Maybe. Right now, the only direct link to him is his secretary Cholota. But the real money man, the one who connected everyone, is gone. The same applies to Sodi. Without Ego, the trail leading to all the corrupt officials and shady business people who received kickbacks from the asbestos tender has gone cold. Now it looks like Ego was the one who made payments on behalf of others, keeping their hands clean. And it's easier now to put all the blame on him since he's no longer around. After Ego's death, his company 605 Consulting Solutions was taken over by his wife, Michelle. Almost immediately, SARS and the Hawks came knocking. From the millions in irregular payments that had flowed through 605 accounts, SARS now wants its cut, 20 million rands. Now everyone else has taken their slice of the pie and disappeared, leaving Ego's estate to face the tax bill. But 605 didn't shut down. After Michelle took over, the Department of Human Settlements awarded the company another contract with 2 million rands. Then soon after, 605 paid 500,000 rands to another company. That company belonged to two sisters, who just happened to be business partners with Ace Magashule's son, Tatu. Igor's death is a crucial piece in Ace Magashule's case, yet somehow it's been quietly brushed aside. Even the media barely touched it. A high-profile figure laid down in the heart of Sandton, a place surrounded by cameras. Yet after 8 years, the police have no idea who did it. But after Mkhize's bombshell revelations, the picture is becoming clearer. High-profile hits like these often remain unsolved because the people behind them are part of the government or the tender cartels. So what really happened? Was Soti furious over the 77.5 million Igor kept for himself? Or were Ace's people tying up loose ends before the ANC elections, cutting off any trade that could lead back to the recipients of the asbestos tender money?